You guys, I am in my receiving era and we need to talk about it. Receiving is something we all crave on some level, whether it's love, attention, affection, abundance, money, care, relationships. We all want to receive, but for most of us, it really does not come naturally. In fact, it can feel downright uncomfortable, unsafe even. And that makes sense because to receive, most of us have to unravel decades and perhaps decades and decades of conditioning that taught us that it's not okay, it's not safe, and it's not deserved to receive. Welcome to Modern Psychedelics, where we explore the transformations made possible through intentional engagement with psychedelics. This podcast will help you integrate high consciousness living into the everyday and deepen the work ignited by altered states. You can expect balanced and grounded conversations around therapeutic, ceremonial, and recreational containers. My name is Lana Pribic, your host and guide. I am a 3-time certified professional life coach, and I work with people who want to integrate higher levels of consciousness into their daily lives so they can feel more peace, fulfillment, and connection. After all, our time here on Earth is so brief, so let's make sure we're really living. The song you hear is called Lost Horizon by Peace Sign. All right, let's journey. I never gave that much thought to the art of receiving, the importance of receiving, the concept of receiving until my journey with 5-MeO-DMT, which was 2 years ago at this point. My 2-year anniversary is actually just coming up in November. Can you believe it? I cannot. I'm not here to talk about that experience. You can listen to previous episodes. Just search 5-MeO-DMT. I shared about the journey, the integration, all of that. It was a very big experience for me, a very heart opening experience. But one thing that did happen during that was that I had a whiteout, which means that I actually lost consciousness during the experience. This is pretty common during this medicine. And so what happened was that I whited out. I don't remember anything that happened during that time. But as I came back into conscious awareness, I said these words, and these words came out of my mouth involuntarily. I didn't even know I was saying them until I heard them. But the first thing I said when I came back to consciousness was, just receive. And then I started laughing because it was really funny at how simple it was, this message to just receive. And this was a message from deep in my subconscious. Perhaps it was from the medicine. I don't know where it came from, but clearly it was big. And so I have spent the last 2 years integrating this, working with the energy of receiving, understanding the blockages to receiving. And I want to talk to you guys about that today. At the time, I didn't understand what it meant for me to embody receiving in a real life kind of way. It felt like an abstract spiritual fortune cookie. But over time, I realized it was pointing to something deeper. The work of learning to receive the unconditional love of the universe was really at the root of it, because 5-MeO is a medicine that tends to connect us to the universal love energy. Receiving the unconditional love of the universe is really at the root of it. But like, what does that look like on a day-to-day basis? Does that mean I have to constantly be meditating and connected to the energy of the universe? I didn't really know. And over time, I've been learning how to implement this message of just receive into day-to-day life. And it's been groundbreaking. It's changed a lot for me. And it's made me realize how much there actually is to receive. And I know that a lot of people listening out there can definitely relate. That is why in today's episode, we're going to be exploring the energetics of receiving, how it's not just about being open to help from other people, right? That's kind of like maybe the surface level understanding of it. But I'm talking about an upgrade in the energy and the consciousness that rules your psyche, really, and that we meet life with. This is the energy that we want to meet life with. So in this episode, we're going to be unpacking why receiving is just as active and powerful as giving, and being of service, how our culture and society has conditioned us to overgive and under receive, the roadblocks or the inner blocks specifically that keep us from letting life support us. I'm basically going to be giving you guys some free coaching today, and how giving and receiving are actually the same flow of energy. So we're going to connect all of this to the key piece of energy leadership. This is a framework that I use in my coaching practice. We're going to be unpacking what level 4 energy is, what that means. It's that caregiver, that giving energy, and how this level of consciousness and energy, while beautiful and heart-centered, it can and does lead to overgiving when things are out of balance. Before we get into that today, I want to share with you a little bit about Happy Mushrooms. And I'm so happy to be partnering with Happy Mushrooms because their products stand for something that I believe is very important, which is psychedelic sovereignty. Something that's so important for anyone who's working intentionally with plant medicines is having your own safe supply at a reasonable cost where you know exactly what's in it and exactly what you're taking. And this is more accessible to you than you might think. And yes, I am talking about those mind-bending mushrooms that we all love. I was genuinely thrilled when I discovered Happy Mushrooms. It's a totally done for you grow kit that makes cultivating your own sacred medicine incredibly easy. That means no spores, no expensive equipment, no lab setup, no big Amazon orders of things that you're going to use once and never look at again. Been there, done that. You don't even have to open the bag when it arrives. You literally just place the bag somewhere with ambient light and good air circulation, and you let nature do its thing. And then in just 3 weeks, you will be harvesting your own mushrooms, up to 56 grams or 2 full ounces. That's a lot of mushrooms. And it's over a $500 value from a simple, discreet, ready to grow kit. So whether you're deepening your healing journey, you want more sovereignty in your practice, you want your own supply of medicine, whether for a macro or microdose, this is such a fun, easy, and powerful way to take your path into your own hands. And there's nothing technical. Again, you guys, no touching, no spraying, no stress, no syringes. You don't even have to do the research. It's literally just patience rewarded with abundance. So if you've been curious about growing your own supply, you know, this fall time is the perfect time to get started with that. And this is your sign. Go visit happymushrooms.com to learn more and get started. They were kind enough to offer the community here 15% off with the code LANA15. So that's happymushrooms.com and LANA15 at checkout to get your stress-free, ready to grow mushroom kit. You can find the links for all of that in the show notes down below if you're listening on Apple and Spotify. So let's get back to the topic of today. Let's talk about the energetic work of receiving. Receiving sounds ridiculously simple, doesn't it? Just receive. But in practice, as I was saying, it's one of the more difficult energetic skills to embody, especially because of the world that we live in and the expectations placed on us. To receive means to accept an exchange of energy with openness. I don't know if that's actually what it means or how you would define it, but when I really tap into the energy of receiving, to me, it is accepting an exchange of energy with openness. And that exchange of energy could be time, money, attention, affection, a simple compliment, a gift. When we're truly open to receive these things, we don't resist, we don't deflect, we allow it. And to allow it means that there's no guilt, there's no shame, there's no urge to immediately give something back and treat it as a transaction. We simply just receive the thing, and that's it. So why is it so freaking hard for us to do this? Receiving is not something that's lazy or greedy. It's an intentional and active surrender. And what are we surrendering? We're surrendering the false narratives that tell us that it's not safe or acceptable to receive, because receiving is actually a very natural thing, but it's our minds that make it harder than it needs to be. And so for most of us, it doesn't come easily and it doesn't come naturally. And receiving requires us to build trust, to cultivate openness, and to have the courage to release control over the narratives that have been running the show for us for decades. This conditioning, it has kept us striving, achieving, serving, probably performing in some way, but very rarely resting, allowing, or receiving. And this energy of striving, achieving, serving, giving, it's not inherently bad, but it's when things feel out of balance that we start to feel stuck and those feelings of resentment start to surface. When we start to practice consciously receiving, something powerful becomes available to us energetically. We become a vessel for life, for love, for abundance to flow through us more freely. And look, we're always a vessel. But if we are not open to receiving, then we are likely a vessel for resentment, burnout, stress, guilt, worry, all of those things. So it's not so much that we become a vessel by being open to receiving, but it's that we become a vessel for energy to flow through us and for the things that are being given to us and offered to us to actually come through us freely without those lower states of being attached to them. And when we're no longer blocking what's trying to come in, which is often subconscious, which we're going to talk about in a moment, we become magnetic. And I promise you that this happens because I am the living embodiment of that. I feel quite magnetic at this time in my life, in a way that I have not before. And I do attribute a lot of that to this art of receiving and doing this work of receiving. So let's switch gears just a little bit because I want to give you guys a little bit of theory here before we just dive into the coaching part of this podcast. I am an IPEC certified professional coach, and so it's very natural for me to use this framework that they teach us at IPEC to view life with and to view my professional work of inner transformation and being an inner transformational guide for people. So it's no surprise that I'm bringing in IPEC 7 levels of energy or consciousness here today. And I'll give you just a quick summary of what that is. Basically, at any moment in time, we are experiencing one of the 7 levels of consciousness, which means that we are seeing life through one of these 7 lenses or perspectives. And these lenses or perspectives that we refer to as a level of energy or a level of consciousness range from being highly catabolic, contractive, fear-based, to highly anabolic, creative, trusting, love-based. So these 7 levels shape how we perceive and respond to life. Level 1 is victimhood, apathy, stuckness, guilt, shame, resentment. And level 7 is pure creation, non-judgment, absolute passion, fearlessness, things that a lot of us who are probably listening to this podcast are after. And level 4 is right in the middle there, right in the middle between level 1 and 7. This is an energy that represents compassion, care, and concern for others. This is the energy of giving and being of service, of helping others. It's that part of us that loves to support, to uplift, to help, and it feels really good when we can do that. When this energy is pure and really coming from an open heart, and you are giving and being in service from an open heart, from a pure heart, we're generous, we're heart-centered, we want others to win. The emotions that are associated with this energy are compassion and gratitude and love and trust. And it's where connection and empathy can live. But every level of consciousness has a shadow. And the shadow of level 4 is one that I'm sure you are familiar with. It's overgiving, it's overfunctioning. It's when our care for others greatly outweighs our care for ourselves. Because at its core, level 4 energy is about giving and supporting and being of service, not just to others, but also to ourselves. So without healthy boundaries, this energy can turn into self-sacrifice. We place everyone's needs ahead of our own. We get caught in other people's emotions and problems. And before we know it, we're exhausted, we're burnt out, we feel resentful, and we're disconnected from ourselves and the people that we once loved. If this sounds familiar, don't worry, because in my coaching practice, I see this all the time. Most of my clients, when we do their energy assessment, which tells us what their dominant levels of energy are, pretty much I would say 90% of my clients have level 4 in one of their top 3, if not top 2 levels of energy. I am very well versed in the ins and outs of this energy. And many of my clients who tend to be executives, CEOs, parents, artists, entrepreneurs, they're natural givers. They love being in service. And I relate to that. I love being of service too. It's why I do this podcast. It's why I decided to become a coach. But when that service comes from obligation and force rather than a pure place and overflow, it doesn't feel good anymore. And that's when people tend to come to me because they've hit burnout, they've hit frustration, maybe even disillusionment, and they're too far in it to know how to get out of it. And that's where I come in and my coaching comes in. But obviously, not everyone is able to benefit from my coaching services. So I am going to give you guys a little mini coaching session today. So keep listening. I personally was there for years. I gave from this place of obligation, and really underneath that was guilt and unworthiness. I have worked through a lot of my codependent bullshit over the years. Back then, I got my sense of purpose and my sense of worthiness from overgiving, overfunctioning, and being there for other people, basically believing that I could solve other people's problems for them. And it was only through psychedelics and core energy coaching that I finally learned true giving comes from an open heart, not from sacrifice. And so this level 4 energy invites us to remember that giving and receiving are not opposites. They are partners. They are two sides of the same coin, yin and yang. One cannot exist without the other. Let's talk about that, because when we give, we often forget that by giving, we are also in a way receiving. If you're confused, keep listening, because when we think about energy, it's clear that giving and receiving are two sides of the same coin. Giving sends out energy, receiving allows it in. It's a natural flow of life, of the universe. It's like breathing, right? And you can't exhale forever. You can't give forever. You also have to inhale. You also have to give back to yourself in relatively equal amounts, ideally. So many of us who live in the caretaking space, whether that's for our own families, parents, or whether our jobs are inherently caregiving jobs. You know, I actually work with a lot of nurse practitioners who also can relate to this, right? These are people who are helpers, healers, they're heart-centered people. They love to exhale, they love to give, they love to support. And they have a lot of stories about what it means to be a giver and what it means for them to receive. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. But this giving feels purposeful. It makes us feel like we have a purpose. It makes us feel needed. It makes us feel validated. And we don't have to stop doing that. We don't have to stop, nor should we stop giving. But when we forget to inhale, to receive, we are cutting ourselves off from the replenishment that actually sustains us and sustains our ability to give and to be of service, which we love so much. So when we're not nourished, we start to feel resentful, exhausted, disconnected. Those fears start to become really loud in our heads, and we start listening to them and we start acting on them. And then it's just a downward spiral. It's a downward spiral. It's not a good time. We start giving at that point from force, from obligation, instead of flow and from our heart. And that's when the giving stops feeling good. We're not delighted to give. Therefore, we're not able to receive those good feelings of giving. Does that make sense? So if we refuse to receive, it's like saying, I'll keep pouring from an empty cup, but I won't let anyone fill it. Eventually, we're going to run dry. When you're in flow, when you're giving and receiving in equal amounts, you know that whenever you give, you're also receiving the satisfaction of being in service to someone else. And whenever someone gives to you, in return, whatever you receive, whatever you truly receive, is also felt by the person who is giving to you. And that felt sensation of them being in service is how you also give. So we can see here that the energy of giving and receiving are one and the same. They cannot happen. Where there's one, there has to be the other. I know that when I'm rested, nourished, grounded, and there's a lot of work that even goes into feeling that way, far beyond just physical maintenance of this human vessel. Let me tell you that. But when I'm feeling that way, my giving, my ability to give feels joyful, effortless. It's something that just comes from this open heart that I have been nurturing long before 5-MeO, but definitely accelerated since 5-MeO. So when I'm depleted, it starts to feel transactional. It's no longer from love, it's from fear. So learning to receive has been a process of nourishment and self-care, of deep inner work. And I notice that as I learn to receive from myself, so give that level 4 energy back to myself through self-care, through nourishment, through showing up for myself, through truly putting myself first before I can put anyone else first. I was actually training my nervous system to be open to receive in general, not just from myself, but from others. So, like anything, it starts with you. The medicine here is to practice receiving, to receive the simple things, the compliments, the support, the money, the pleasure without guilt. Because when we receive, we keep the energy of life moving, we stay in balance, and life keeps unfolding and moving in beautiful ways. Hi everyone, Lana here. Wow, I don't know about you, but I'm definitely thinking about how there's less than 3 months left in 2025, and I am definitely wanting to tie up loose ends and really make some progress on the things that I set out for myself in 2025. And I know that I'm probably not alone in that. So right now is just an amazing time to look at those areas that we're feeling stuck or unmotivated or drained in. And if you have been feeling stuck in a very specific area in your life that you can't seem to make progress on, maybe it's love, relationship, purpose, health, money, career, and you're ready to get into action and stop being stuck, I've created a very accessible new coaching offer for people like you. My focused transformation coaching sessions is a short, focused, and potent coaching container that's designed to help you get unstuck in one key area of your life in a matter of weeks. These sessions are for you if you are aware that there is a blockage and you are ready to move through the patterns, outdated beliefs, and inhibiting energetic patterns that are keeping you stuck. And you're ready to do that with clarity, grace, power, and alignment with your values and your truth. So you can actually choose one of 4 streams in the focused transformation coaching sessions. The first is clarity and purpose. Then we have love and connection, health and energy, or wealth and flow. And together, we're going to make real lasting shifts from the inside out. This is a low commitment, high result container for people who are really ready to just get laser focused and make some progress in a key area of their life. You can learn more at modernpsychedelics.net/focused, or you can tap the link in the show notes. I'll have that there for you. There's no application form required for this program, and I'm only accepting a few clients per round. So if you want to get in on the first round, let's end 2025 together with intention and clarity and start the next year, 2026, which is just around the corner, with an alignment with who you really are and just that head start. So that's modernpsychedelics.net/focus to learn more and get started. I can't wait to hear from you, hopefully work with you. And with that, let's get back to this episode. So now that we have explored the energetic foundation of what it means to receive and some of the common downsides of not receiving, let's get to the real meat of this episode. Those inner narratives that are keeping us from receiving, because this is where the transformation really happens. And if you're navigating psychedelic integration, this is probably what you want to bring your focus to. From an energetic coaching perspective, and as a core energy coach, there are 4 types of inner blocks that I work with, which keep us from freely receiving. And those are limiting beliefs, interpretations, assumptions, and gremlins. These are all different variations of limiting stories, ideas, beliefs that live beneath our patterns, the ones that shape how we engage with life. And as you will see, the consciousness, the energy behind these ideas, these inner narratives, these inner blockages are inherently catabolic, destructive, draining, and all rooted in fear, worry, guilt, and shame. So before we go there, let's just review that receiving is not about accepting help. That's a part of it, sure, but at its core, receiving is about allowing life to support you in every form that it wants to. So the examples that we're going to go over today are related to receiving help and receiving from other people, but receiving can also include relational receiving, love, attention, intimacy, sexual pleasure is a big one that a lot of us have difficulty receiving. There's financial and professional receiving, being generously compensated for your work, receiving money, work opportunities, promotions, mentorships, collaborations, support. There's also creative and spiritual receiving for my artists and feelers out there, right? Inspiration, guidance, healing, beauty, even ideas are things to be received and that we can train ourselves to become more open to receive. And then there's everyday life receiving, compliments, time, space, rest, joy, pleasure, play. There's so many different ways that we can receive. And I want you guys to keep that in mind while I go over some of these examples, because what the example or the context that we're talking about doesn't matter so much as the energy behind it. So if we're blocked in receiving in one area, we're probably blocked from receiving in most areas, because energy doesn't compartmentalize and energy is not specific to situations. It flows according to our state of being, which is our own energy and the level of consciousness that we're approaching life through. So as we move through this next section, think about which of these patterns might live inside of you, where you might be resisting support, where you might be rejecting the flow and abundance that's trying to meet you. And also just really paying keen attention to the energy rather than the situation I'm describing here. So let's start with limiting beliefs. So a limiting belief, what is that? It's a story that we take to be true. It can be a story about ourselves, about life, about society, but it's this idea, this story that we picked up somewhere and we decided that it was true and we're going to live our lives in accordance to that. So a common limiting belief around receiving might sound something like this. People are generally greedy and they want something from me. No one just gives without expecting something in return. This is very common. We all likely have some variation of this limiting belief floating around because, society has taught us in this capitalistic world that, each man for himself and we're all just out here struggling to survive, and we have to look after ourselves, right? When you hear that, right? People are generally greedy and want something from me. No one just gives without expecting something in return. That creates distrust and contraction, right? It closes the heart, it blocks flow and genuine connection. And the emotions that come up when approaching life in this way are fear and worry. You're afraid that people are going to take advantage of you. You're constantly worried that people are trying to extort you. So you better not receive anything because it's not safe. Because as soon as you receive, bam, you're going to owe someone something. Sounds familiar? What's another way to look at this, right? Because remember, this is just a lens. This is just a perspective. This is just one way of seeing the world. What if instead it was true that many people out there actually love to give simply because giving feels good? That feels true. What if by allowing myself to receive, I create opportunities for more connection, flow, and love in the world? Well, whoa, that feels true too, doesn't it? Do you see how that's a high consciousness reframe that takes the energy of receiving and leans into it rather than pushes it away, right? So, what's the energetic impact of this high consciousness reframe? If it is true that many people love to give simply because giving feels good, and by receiving, you're opening yourself up to opportunities, connection, flow, and more love, you're opening your heart to trust and to allow others to contribute. Your relationships feel lighter and more reciprocal. You start to attract generosity naturally because your energy welcomes it and feels safe with it. And so that's that first example I want you to sit with. The second example is an interpretation. And by the way, all of these examples, the four that we're going to look at today, we're going to get deeper and more personal and therefore more challenging to overcome with each one. So the limiting belief is kind of like the surface level, and we're getting deeper and deeper with each one. So an interpretation is a story, opinion, or a judgment that you create about an event, situation, person, or experience, and you believe it to be true. So an interpretation that you might have about receiving is, when he offered to help me, it meant that he thinks I can't handle things on my own, right? He only offered to help me because he thinks that I'm incapable of doing it on my own. What feelings come up for you when you sit with this? There's resentment, self-doubt, perhaps some embarrassment, all low consciousness, highly catabolic states of being that reinforce independence as this modern measure of worthiness. This way of seeing the world also keeps people at arm's length, and it keeps you in self-reliance and emotional isolation. And it sounds like a really good way to get burnt out really fast. So what's another way of looking at this, right? What's another way to interpret someone's desire to help you? Well, what about when he offered to help, it was an opportunity for connection, collaboration, and creativity. Receiving his help honors both of us and allows a healthy interdependence to grow. Okay, that feels lighter. That feels truer. And when we look at it from that lens, right, the edges soften and you begin to feel supported, right? You start to co-create relationships rooted in mutual care rather than having to prove yourself through independence. And creativity also blooms within collaborative dynamics that you may not be able to achieve on your own. Okay, so let's move on to the next inner block that I have here, which is rooted in an assumption, an idea that history repeats itself. If it happened that way once, it'll happen that way again. So when we think about inner blocks to receiving, that might sound like, every time I've trusted someone to support me, they've disappointed me. It's much safer to just do it all on my own. Right? I've met a lot of people who have this frame of mind, right? It's better if I just do it myself. Can't trust people. It's rooted in control, right? It's rooted in like, I know best. No one knows as well as I do. All that stuff. It brings up these feelings of, again, resentment, blame, perhaps even anger if there's some lingering feelings towards the past. And what this really does is that it builds protective walls. It repeats old pains and it prevents new experiences of trust or support. let alone it blocks you from receiving support. What's another way of looking at this situation, right? Perhaps it's a work situation and you never want help or support. Well, maybe you take a moment and tell yourself the past doesn't dictate the future. I can create, which is true. That's very true. I can create new experiences by showing up and trusting, by showing up differently, because I am different now. I'm a different person than I was in the past. So whatever happened then doesn't have to happen this time. Just notice how different that feels. You release control. You step into curiosity and openness. You begin to attract relationships that reflect who you are today rather than who you were in the past. In other words, you're starting to live in the present moment rather than in the past. That's how fucking powerful this work is. And as time goes on, you start to lean into and experience deeper emotional safety, and relationships build. And as relationships build and bonds become deeper, receiving becomes easier. And it just is this beautiful flower that keeps unfolding and revealing itself to you. So let's get to the last example that I have here, which is what a gremlin message or an inner critic message around receiving might sound like for you. So the gremlin or the inner critic is that deeply rooted inner voice that feels like it's just so strong. Most of us have it. And at its core, it's telling you that you're not good enough, you're not worthy enough in some way. So a gremlin message around receiving might sound like, I don't deserve to receive. I don't deserve this. I have to earn things. I have to work harder. Why me? Rooted in shame, really. Most of these gremlin messages are rooted in shame. There's guilt, there's worry, there's fear, all catabolic ways of being in the world. And again, keeps you striving, keeps you in depletion. It also ties your worth to productivity, to results, and to self-sacrifice. I mean, in general, it ties your self-worth to something outside of yourself. And your self-worth is not outside of yourself, it's inside of yourself. That's why we call it self-worth. But what's another way of how can we take this gremlin message and upgrade it? Upgrade it to feel more true to who you are today and the life that you're building for yourself. I think that this is really it. This is the work that so many of us are doing, whether it's around receiving, but what we're all working towards is this self-belief and self-idea that I am inherently worthy. And in this case, I am inherently worthy of receiving, of just receiving. I don't have to earn love or support. I just simply need to let it in. Just by being born, I am worthy for whatever it is that I desire. And so I think this is what a lot of us are working towards, and listening to a single podcast episode or having a single psychedelic experience to illuminate this is not enough to really transform it. But hopefully this is reinforcing the depth of getting to the root of the work that a lot of us are doing. The shift here is endless and hard to capture in just a few minutes. But if you start approaching life from this, I am inherently worthy of receiving, I don't have to earn love. I don't have to earn support. I don't have to earn to receive. I just need to simply allow it in. You embody self-worth and magnetism. Life starts feeling more abundant and easeful because you're available to receive without guilt. You give from overflow, not from obligation. You're simply in flow. You're probably not even thinking about giving and receiving. You're synced in and tapped into the natural flow of life, which inherently supports the process and the flow of giving and receiving. So these examples, like I said, are in the context of receiving help, support, love from other people. But as I mentioned before, it's not limited to help and support from others. This can be applied to receiving anything, really. Receiving isn't about taking or being indebted. It's about allowing. To allow, we need to get out of our own way and our own head about why it's not okay to allow, why we need to control, why it's not safe to just let go and to let life in, and why we can't just receive. So the more open we become to receiving over time, the more aligned our lives start to feel. We're all looking for alignment, right? Well, a big part of living a life of alignment is allowing the natural flow of giving and receiving to run its course and not just being a giver. And so, if you are looking for alignment in your life, perhaps this is an angle that you haven't considered yet. What's your giving and receiving balance and flow looking like? And if it is out of balance, how might that be impacting your alignment in life? It's a great question. It's a great coaching question to consider. I have seen this to be true in my own life and in the lives of my clients. And that's because we're no longer subconsciously dodging opportunities, people, money, experiences, emotions, love that might come our way. So instead of getting tied up in these stories, I can just receive and say, thank you. Thank you. That's it. That's all that's needed, right? And when we bring awareness to the stories that we explored here today, and I encourage you to explore your own flavor of these stories, we start to understand what's really been blocking us all along, which is our capacity to trust life itself. It's hard to receive if we don't trust life itself. So this is the bridge, the moment we begin to move from awareness to embodiment, from insight to integration, because at the deepest level, receiving is trust. And I'm happy we're ending here today, because trusting that life, love, and abundance are already available to you is like the bedrock, foundational, core belief that is required to receive, to let you feel safe, worthy, and ready to let all of that in. And that is just such a beautiful summation of what my experience of 5-MeO DMT integration has been, because it blasted my heart open. It showed me the abundance and the love that was available in the universe. And then coming back with that message, just receive. It's been this process of living from that open heart and trusting that that's enough, trusting that love really is all we need. And from that place, it just becomes so much easier to receive. So I hope that this resonated with you, because as I mentioned, receiving isn't just a concept to understand, it's a state of consciousness and a way of being. The moment that we begin to dismantle and challenge these outdated inner narratives that, yes, once kept us safe, but today they're not mature. They haven't grown up with us. Once we start to shine a light on some of these stories that say, I can't, I couldn't, I shouldn't, I don't deserve, we start to shift how energy moves through our lives. Giving starts to become effortless because we're giving from overflow and not depletion. So I want to challenge you right now, dear listener, to take out a notebook or your notes app and just freeform, no pressure, write out any limitations to receiving that come up for you, whether they're a limiting belief, an assumption, an interpretation, or a gremlin. Probably it'll be a combination of all of those, but just write those out. What are some of those stories about receiving that you are carrying around and probably have been carrying around for a long time? And that's really the first step, is excavating those. And sometimes it can be a challenge to even identify those, which is where psychedelics can be really useful, but also working with someone like myself who is a professionally trained mirror to show you what you cannot see, right? That's the first step. And from there, we can actually start to shift that narrative and then to embody the new narrative. You can use the stories we've explored already in this episode to start, but try to get super specific about the stories you're telling yourself about receiving, because they will be specific to you. Like there's probably narrative within your family about receiving. You know, my narrative around receiving is very specific to my experience as an immigrant and a refugee, right? And yours is going to be specific to whatever your life has looked like. And if this conversation and this type of inner work resonates with you, if you recognize yourself in the overgiver, the overfunctioner, the one who feels like there's never quite enough time, energy, money, permission, this could be good for you, because this is exactly the work that I take my clients through inside of my 6-month private coaching program. This program is rooted in a research validated framework from IBOGA, the Energy Leadership Framework. This is the 7 levels of consciousness that we touched on today. And this helps us understand your energetic patterns, and we start to learn to shift from those lower reactive catabolic states to higher, more creative, effortless, flowing, trusting energy. And so together we identify and transform your unique inner blocks so that you can move through life with freedom, peace, and genuine excitement. And receiving might just be one piece of the puzzle. This is like something that I would spend a session or two with a client on. There are so many different topics that we can work through together. And in working with me, you're going to learn to manage your energy. Okay. That means your consciousness and your beliefs, your thoughts, your emotions, and the actions that you decide to take or not. I am not the coach for you. If you need someone to help you manage your time and projects, that's not me. I'm here to help you manage your consciousness and your energy, and to empower you to get in the driver's seat of your own life in that way. So you're going to start living and creating from alignment and not effort. That's the goal. And you'll experience what it truly means to receive life, love, abundance, support, without guilt or resistance. So if this kind of inner work feels right for you at this time, I would love to support you. I am onboarding new clients for the month of October and November, and probably whenever you're listening to this. So you can apply now at modernpsychedelics.net/apply. Fill out the application. Tell me a little bit about yourself, and you will book a discovery call with me, a 1-hour call. It's not a sales call. It's a call for us to say, hi, how are you? Are we vibing? Is this a good fit? Can I give you what you're looking for? So yeah, if coaching is the next step for you in your journey, I would absolutely love to be that person in your life, because when we transform parts of ourselves that resist receiving, resist trusting, resist openness, we open the door for life to give to us in ways that we never could have imagined. And we never imagined it because our energetic blockages, our lens, our perspective, our consciousness was preventing us from seeing, dreaming, and being. I am sending you a big hug and lots of love on this beautiful October day. Enjoy the fall season, and we'll talk really soon. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to and supporting the show. To stay in touch, sign up for my mailing list, which can be found in the show notes or on modernpsychedelics.net. If this episode sparked something within, please let me know by leaving a review of the Modern Psychedelics podcast on Apple and Spotify. This really helps to share these messages with those who need them, which is the whole reason why I do what I do. And if you haven't already, come join the ongoing conversation over on Instagram with other beautiful souls. We have an incredible and conscious community over at the handle Modern Psychedelics. And don't forget that the work begins after you come back down to earth. And I'm standing shoulder to shoulder, doing it with you.